Hey, Summit Chasers, you are listening to Voices of Impact, the podcast where you broaden your awareness to the various issues across the globe, learn about the amazing people who are working to solve them, and get inspired to chase your own summit with actionable strategies. It starts right now. All right. I am with Matt Baehr, who is the Executive Director of Homes for Hope, and I'm so excited to have him here with me today. We are going to dive into what it is Homes for Hope is doing, the mission, and kind of how it's evolved, and we're going to see where this conversation takes us. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So to kick us off, tell me a little bit about your background and maybe a pivotal moment that led you to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I got started in sales right out of college because I figured out I was a music ed major in college, and I figured out too late in my college career that I didn't want to teach, and it was too late to change my major and still graduate in 4 years. So I went directly into sales, commission sales, and I was doing well at that and enjoyed it. But I felt like where I really came alive was in the area of ministry. And so I was involved in campus ministry when I was in college. And so I pursued joining staff with campus missions organization called Crew. And I served with that organization, launching movements on campuses across New Jersey for about 12 years, from 2004 to about 2015. And around that time, as I was getting to know myself, I was really grateful to Crew for allowing me to try things and fail and grow through the failure and learn what I could be successful at. And so as I got to know myself and know how I was gifted, I switched into the humanitarian arm of Crew and focused on humanitarian aid procurement and disaster relief. And I was doing that for about 4 years. I can talk a little bit more about how that affected me and changed my heart. And through that work, I learned about the incredible work of Hope International and Homes for Hope. And so in 2019, I applied for the Executive Director of Homes for Hope position. And by God's grace, they offered me the position. So I've been leading the organization since then.
That's very cool. So you have a pretty extensive background then within this space. I would love to actually dive into the impact that serving in the humanitarian and disaster relief had on you. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, when I was in campus ministry, excuse me. One of the most important things I learned was that humiliation is an underrated form of growth. I really needed to be humiliated and have my pride knocked down a couple pegs in order to be useful, I think. And I had somebody tell me early on in my career that I think it would be good for you to fail at this. And they recognized, I think, a pride or an arrogance in my heart that would cause me to be an ineffective leader. And also, I was recognizing I have this big heart for the world and needs around the world, but I'm a white guy from New Jersey. I only speak English. I had 4 small children at the time. I'm probably not the most strategic person to travel across the world and try and make a difference, especially if I'm doing it from a space of arrogance and with a, savior mindset. So I heard a talk about the idea of giving up the hero spot. And that idea really struck me, where I became convicted that I cared too much about my platform, my influence, the size of the people, the campus ministries that I was involved in, or the people I was influencing. And, if I could get to a point where it's not about me, but it's about the people that I'm serving, then I could really make a difference. And if it's not about me, but about God's glory, I think that would put things in proper perspective. And so that really, I started to look for opportunities to be involved in that. And like I said, I started out in sales, and the humanitarian arm of Crew was looking for a procurement director. And that sounded a little bit like sales to me, or at least it had skills related to sales involved with that role. And so I applied for the role, and I was able to step into it, and then really lean into where I was gifted, which is making strategic connections. So the way that job worked was our missionaries overseas would do an assessment of an area that had need, and they would come back and tell me what those humanitarian needs were, and then it was my job to go source that aid. So I would work with businesses to find donated aid, government organizations as well, and from multiple sources, built relationships in the business world and procured the aid that was needed, and then was also able to respond to disasters. And so it was in that space where I read a book called Mission Drift by the CEO of Hope International, whose name is Peter Greer. And I became really attracted to their approach to poverty alleviation, where you're taking small amounts of capital and investing that into people who are living in poverty, into their businesses, so that they could either start a business or gain access to being able to buy product in bulk, or get a roadside stand rather than trying to sell from their home, or the small improvements which would enable them to make a little bit more money, and then pay the loans back, and then be able to take another loan. And it was the only thing that I'd heard of in the nonprofit space where the money never goes away. There's a lot of really great things that nonprofit organizations do around the world, and we meet different needs differently. But the idea of you giving somebody a loan, they pay the loan back, that money gets sent back out as more loans. So the impact continually grows in perpetuity. I just had never encountered that model in the nonprofit world. So I was very intrigued by that, and pursued a role here. And by God's grace, they offered me the position.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that model either. That's really interesting, and I absolutely want to dive into that. But before we get into that, you mentioned something that I think is worth highlighting, and it was that you had been given feedback that there was maybe an arrogance about you, and that you needed to kind of take a step back, self-reflect, and figure out how to move past that so that you could serve better. And I think that that's so interesting, because not everybody would take that on board and actually change it and allow it to serve them in a more positive way. And somewhere where I can actually relate to that, I got absolutely hammered when I got my first leadership position when I was 25 years old, I think, and was leading a team of 12 or 13. They did not like my leadership style whatsoever. I lacked empathy. I just was solving issues and not really seeing the person behind it. I cared a lot, but I was so focused on the goal that I wasn't able to see my team as the people that they were. And again, taking on feedback like that, it hurts, it stings. But I think that it speaks to your character to take it on board and want to change that and not let it hold you back anymore. So what did you actually do when you got that feedback to be able to shift it and allow it to kind of lead you to who you are today?
Yeah, I received it as a gift, because I think there's a temptation for those of us in leadership to try and mold and shape our organizations into our own image, right? And I think that limits us, right? If the organization can only grow as big as my giftings or my understanding, my knowledge, then I'm limiting our impact. And so I think to take a step back and realize I have skill gaps, I need to grow in certain areas that can help me in my hiring decisions, that can help me in the way I approach strategic planning. And it really impacted every aspect of the way I grow and lead an organization. And then I can hear feedback from my team, who exists they're passionate about the work that we're involved in too, especially when you're involved in nonprofit work that you're striving to make an impact in the world. And all organizations are doing that to a certain degree. But they didn't join the organization because they were excited about me. Right. They joined the organization because they were excited about the mission that is over all of us. Right. And we're in that together. So if the mission and the vision of the organization is bigger than me, then that's something we can all strive toward together.
Yeah. I think that that was really, really well said and that you received it as a gift. I think if we could look at that feedback that we're given as a gift, but actually hear it and receive it and do something about it, that's
Mhm.
absolutely what it is. Because had they not given you that, you would I would be in a completely different position than what you're in
Right.
today. So I think that that is a beautiful reframe and one that we can all seek to kind of use in various situations. It doesn't just have to be about feedback, but just in general, whether it be an experience that really didn't go to plan. Receive it as a gift and see what you can learn
Mhm.
from it and take from it and build upon it. I love that. Also, what you said about understanding your skill gaps and making sure that your team can compensate for that, I think is another key to running a successful organization. And not only are you filling those skill gaps, but you're bringing in a whole pool of thought diversity. You
Mhm.
don't want, as owners, like you said, a lot of, I think, leaders and business owners can fall into the trap of, like you said, wanting to create it in your image.
Mhm.
But that, or creating a bunch of mini me's, that will
Mhm.
do you such a disservice in the long run, because then everybody's going to think the same way that you do. You're not going to be
Mhm.
getting new ideas, new ways to solve problems. Where if you focus on the gaps that you need to fill or these areas of expertise that you don't have, you bring
Mhm.
somebody in who does have it. Now, the thought diversity that you have sitting at your table when you're trying to overcome a problem or trying to go after this huge mission of making an impact, you're going to get so many different ideas coming to the table that you'll be able to just like widen your reach and achieve so much more because the diversity that you've got there. So I think that
Mhm.
that's another huge thing for business owners and leaders to take into consideration. Let's get away from making mini me's and instead see who we can bring to the table that will balance out or elevate or allow you to increase that thought diversity.
It's a different way of looking at the old adage of not wanting to have a bunch being surrounded by a bunch of yes men or women, right? It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, let's not make the organization in our own image or create a bunch of mini me's,
Right.
like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, getting into Homes for Hope, talk to me a little bit more about what it is that you guys are doing. How do you identify the people that you're helping? And you mentioned that they're entrepreneurs that you're typically able to give loans so that they can go after their own mission and vision. But yeah, talk to me about how that works and how you're finding them, what it is they're working on.
Yeah. Let me back up a little bit to
Sure.
give kind of the history of the organization, and that'll help answer the question that you just had.
Yeah.
Um, so our founder is a builder in Pennsylvania. He's the founder of Keystone Custom Homes, and his name is Jeff Rutt. And his church in the mid 90s was sending containers of aid to a partnering church in Ukraine, Zaporozhye, Ukraine, where the nuclear power plant is. That's been in the news during this war that we're in.
Hmm.
Um, and this was after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So the region there was experiencing rampant poverty, and they were trying to help by sending containers of aid. And the pastor of the church there, way ahead of his time, said to Jeff, "Your helping is actually hurting us because the local businesses here can't compete with free. They're getting these free products from the United States, and the local businesses are suffering as a result of that. Is there a way that you can help us help ourselves?"
Mm-hmm.
And so it was around that time. Well, first, what Jeff did as an entrepreneur, right, was he noticed that there were fields of sunflowers surrounding that community. It's a beautiful country, Ukraine. And so he came back, he wrote up a business plan and purchased a sunflower processing machine so that the church could make sunflower oil to sell. And he
Oh,
dropped off the
cool.
machine and went back a year later. And the machine was sitting in the same corner where he dropped it off, gathering dust.
Hmm.
And he realized that he had moved from exporting his goods to exporting his ideas, and that wasn't going to work either. So it was around that time that he heard about the concept of microfinance. So he decided to do what he knew how to do. He built a home, and he partnered with his trades and suppliers to get donated or discounted services on the build, which increased the profit margin on the sale of the home.
Hmm.
But he was building his product in his community with his people. It wasn't a charity home. It wasn't given away. It was sold like it normally would be.
Hmm.
Um, and then the resulting profit, bolstered by the trades and suppliers' contributions, he sent 12 loans of about $500 each to this church to be distributed amongst some business owners there. And then a couple of months later, somebody called him back and said, "Jeff, I have good news and bad news. The good news is it's working. The local businesses here are thriving. They're growing. The bad news is somebody got on local radio and told everybody about it. So we're going to need a lot more capital. And so that's how Hope International was founded in 1997. And
Wow.
to answer your question about how we determine who gets the loans, really, we work with people who are from the communities that we serve. So they're in our microfinance institutions, we hire finance professionals, loan officers from these communities who aren't going to make, I can't helicopter in and make a determination on what's a good business idea because I'm not from there. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back to what I was saying before about being a white guy from Jersey. I'm not. I'll probably make cultural mistakes that they won't make. So they know what their communities want and need more than
Yeah.
I do. So they're the ones that are making the determinations on the loans and who gets them. A big key element of our strategy is when an entrepreneur receives a loan, they join a solidarity group where they cross guarantee each other's loans. So we have a 98% loan repayment rate, which is mind boggling. And that's because, say you and I are in a group together. If I can't pay my loan back, that's on you and the rest of the group to pay.
Oh,
And so
wow.
if you go to one of these meetings, if somebody doesn't show up, they'll either wait for the person or they'll go and knock on the door and bring them. So there's a big amount of accountability there. And
Yeah.
so it's social collateral. That's how they collateralize the loans. And then coupled with that, we know that poverty is more complicated than just a lack of material resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's social, it's personal, it's spiritual. There's all sorts of different elements to what an experience living in poverty is like. And
Mm-hmm.
so we seek to address poverty holistically in that we offer biblically based business training, mentorship, and the opportunity to learn as part of a group there. So there's many different directions we could go from here, but that's
Yeah.
a long answer to your brief question.
That no, that's really interesting. I'm really glad that you shared that because I think that one of the things that stood out to me is when you said that they said help us help ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's so key is making sure that yes, you're trying to solve the problem, but you're also teaching them how to continue to go on and avoid it maybe generationally,
Mm-hmm.
breaking the trajectory that they were previously on. So I
Yeah, and
absolutely love that.
it's not codependency, and
Right.
it's not independency. It's interdependency. Help us help ourselves.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're serving each other in the process.
Right. And I love that you guys are set up to where you have people in the communities that you serve helping to make the decisions. Because, like you said, you do not have all of the insights that they have. You're not in it. You're not in that location. You don't understand how that community or that ecosystem within the community works. But you have somebody who does help you guys determine okay, these are the businesses that our community actually needs. And these are the ones that we want to put forth, which I think is huge too.
Yeah, I was in the Dominican Republic back in February, and one of our loan officers in Santo Domingo uh, had been an associate, somebody who was receiving loans
Mm-hmm.
and over many years of faithfulness of receiving loans, growing her business, paying her loans back. She eventually became a loan officer, and she just won Loan Officer of the Year, where she's now serving and making determinations of loans for 500
Yeah.
associates across the country. So
That is very cool.
her name
I
is
love that.
Mercedes. Yeah.
I love that. Where all are you guys currently helping?
Yeah. So we are in 24 countries around the world.
Okay.
So we started out in Eastern Europe, and we're in Southeast Asia, Africa, Dominican Republic, and Haiti, South America, and Central America.
That's very cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me about the name because I think when people hear Homes for Hope,
Mm-hmm.
to me it's very different. Like I had somebody previously on that was Home of Hope in Gwinnett County, and that was a shelter basically for women and with young children who are homeless. So I think you
Mm-hmm.
hear Homes for Hope and you might think, okay, it's got something to do with like getting people into housing or whatever it might be, and then it turns out that it's microfinancing for entrepreneurs. So talk to me a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, it's one of our biggest challenges
Mm,
is trying to convince people that they don't actually know who we are or what we do when they hear our name.
yeah.
There's a lot of misconceptions over who we are as an organization. Really, the name is just practical in that we're a division of Hope International. So people build homes to support Hope International. So Homes for Hope. But if I could speak about the word hope, I think about the word hope a lot. And this is one of the things that drew me to the organization as well, that we would name the organization after that word. And I think, hope is the only thing that will constantly let us down, but we still do it, right? Like if somebody were, I put my hope in a relationship and it ends, or this job and I lose the job, or a sports team and they lose, or, it covers all facets of life.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing in life that's like this. If somebody told me, it would feel good to go punch that brick wall back there, I would stop doing it eventually because it hurt, but
Right.
Hope isn't like that. We keep, even though we get hurt, we keep hoping. Right. And so why is that? Why is hope so powerful? And I think it's because we were created in God's, talking about image from before, we were created in God's image for something more, right? And we weren't meant to find our full satisfaction in things like businesses or, or a relationship or a sports team, So as an organization who's named Hope International, if the hope that we were pointing people to was loans or a successful business, restored relationships, we'd be doing them a disservice ultimately, because those things fail, right? And so we need to point them to something broader than that. And so, so we're a Christian organization. We organize what we do around those. We serve anybody, right? It doesn't matter what your race, religion, gender, identity, background is. We happily serve people. But the hope that we point people to is something more eternal and transcendent than something as transient as what we experience on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah.
That was beautifully said, and I've never heard of hope spoken about that way. And I think that it's absolutely food for thought, because you're right. We all consistently have gone through heartbreak, hard times, whatever it might be, and yet we continue to hold on to hope always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such a beautiful thing to be aware of. And also, it's something I think that innately drives us as humans to continue to persevere and be resilient and push through, is because we have hope to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's written on our souls.
Yeah. I love that. I almost want to name that this hope is written on our souls. That's so I love that. Talk to me a little bit about how the work you're doing has shaped you.
Yeah. When you said that question before, my mind immediately went to giving up the hero spot, not having it be about me. And, I think when you're in the humanitarian, disaster relief, poverty alleviation space, I think you really see the best in people. When I'm responding to a disaster and, in a neighborhood where there was 8 to 10 feet of standing sewage water and people are arriving to their homes, opening their garage doors and their refrigerators and couches are falling out because everything floated, and you're gutting the first floor of people's homes. And it's a hard situation to be in. It's physically taxing. It doesn't smell good. But you really see the beauty in people in those situations, because everybody's in the same situation, right? Everybody's experiencing the same thing. All the differences, all the things that we use to divide us go away in moments like that. And people come around each other and support each other and help each other.
Yeah.
I think you see that in poverty alleviation, where, you find yourself in pretty gnarly situations or neighborhoods or living conditions, but you see the joy and the drive and the determination in the people that we're serving, who are creative and have great ideas of how they can provide for their communities and serve their families, and who are dedicated to fighting for their children, growing closer to God. And it's an honor and a privilege to be in these situations and meet these people who live very differently than me, but there are so many similarities and similar goals and dreams that we all share despite our different circumstances. So I think
Yeah.
that's how I've been shaped most by being in roles like this.
Yeah, just the eyes being open. And I think, like you said, I think that in today's age, specifically with social media, with the news, I feel like we're so much more prone to focus on the negative and all the crap
Hmm.
that's going on everywhere. So I
Hmm.
think what you said about truly seeing the beauty in those situations of everybody coming together and the differences don't matter anymore, I would imagine is incredibly inspiring.
Hmm.
How, what do you think we could do as a society to potentially be like that more often? Because I do think that it comes, like you said, typically in these moments of disaster. So how do
Hmm.
you think we could shift into that being more of just an everyday way of life?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to recognizing how similar we are. I mean, we all struggle. We all have
Mm-hmm.
hopes and dreams. It's fascinating because my life is very weird in that I'm interacting with people who are multimillionaires, right, in the building
Mm-hmm.
industry. Usually CEOs of building companies. Um, and on one end of my job, and on the other end of my job, I'm I'm interacting with people who are living in poverty. Um,
Right.
but what makes Homes for Hope resonate within the building industry is that the people that partner with us can see themselves in the people that we serve. Right? They had
Mm-hmm.
somebody invest in them to help them get started in business and support them
Yeah.
along the way. They had somebody believe in them and invest in their dreams. And even beyond that, you know, a lot of the builders that I work with have dreams for their children, and they worry about their kids. They may
Mm-hmm.
have worked really hard to build a business and grown it over the years, but their children have grown up in relative luxury, and so they're concerned. Will my children have the same work ethic that I do? Or
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, there's a lot of pressure in the building industry, which is hard on marriages, and I think there's a lot of pressure in poverty, which is hard on marriages, and so I think the answer to your question is, a maybe turn off the news and some social media where all we're
Yeah.
getting fed to us all the time is our differences and what
Yeah.
separates us, and maybe get out there and form real relationships with people, get in people's lives, and
Yeah.
see how similar we are, and also maybe learn how to disagree well. Just because we disagree on something doesn't mean the relationship needs to be broken off. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we are enemies. there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of room for relationship that I think we aren't taking advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said too is something worth pointing out, that you personally are involved with the two polar opposites. You've got multimillionaires and then you've got people in poverty. So
Hmm.
you are essentially exposed and much more aware of both sides of it. And I think
Hmm.
that there's something to be said for that exposure that allows you to show up in different ways when you're just out and about. Your eyes are probably much, much more open to what's going on around you because you are so aware of how things are functioning on either side. So I think
Hmm.
another thing that can help is people getting out of their comfort zones.
Hmm.
Go eat lunch somewhere that you wouldn't typically go eat lunch at. Go to a neighborhood that you typically wouldn't go to, and just start to be more aware and then understand, like you said, everybody has the same hopes and dreams,
Hmm.
and we all have stresses and worries. So if we can put aside those differences, whether it be income or race or gender identity, whatever it might be, and
Hmm.
just acknowledge people for people, I think
Hmm.
that we'll be much, much closer to seeing what you've witnessed within the disaster relief space a lot more often.
Yeah, and I think too, listening to people rather than talking at people would be
Mm,
really helpful. We don't know how to listen well anymore, um, nor are we willing to. We just want, a lot of us are in our echo chambers, and that's where we're comfortable. To your point about getting out of our comfort zones.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think growing in the skill of asking questions and actually listening to answers would help.
yeah, yeah, hugely. And I think one way that that can typically what I've seen go wrong is and I'm guilty of it myself 100%. I'll be talking to somebody and I'm listening, but at the same time, I'm trying to think about how I should respond
Uh-huh.
or what it might be, right? And then that takes you out of it. But if you truly just sit and listen with the intent of listening to what they're saying, you'll hear so much more than if you're caught up in
Absolutely.
your own head about what you should say next or what you want to talk about next. And I think that that will help. I think that it's harder these days because so many interactions happen on social media that I think
Yeah.
we're losing touch with how to have a conversation, whether it be face to face or over Zoom, whatever it might be. You can still
Hmm.
have those genuine conversations. But yeah, we all need to key into listening a little bit more and talking a bit less.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm worried for my kids who are growing up in this
Mm-hmm.
culture, and that's how they connect with each other. Growing up, I
Right.
used to go over friends' houses to play,
Mm-hmm.
and now they connect online and play together. And I mean
Yeah.
that's the way. There's a lot of advantages to the way the world works now, um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's something that we've lost. And so, how do we navigate
Yeah.
our new reality and lean into these things? I think
Yeah.
those are some of the questions we have
Absolutely.
to ask ourselves.
Absolutely. Shifting us back over to Homes for Hope, talk to me about a few stories that you've come across throughout your time there that have really just stood out to you.
Yeah, yeah. Recently, I really have come to love and respect the story about a gentleman named Faustin. So Faustin lives in Rwanda. If you know anything about the history of Rwanda, you know that it was a war-torn country that has gone through a lot of healing over the past 20 years. And so Faustin was living in poverty, trying to provide for his family. He's a welder, and so he was trying to find whatever odd jobs he could find as a welder, but he really wanted a loan so that he could start a business and grow it so that he could feed his family and provide for them. And every bank that he approached required a bribe in order to receive a loan. And it was a very long, arduous process in order to get the loan. And can you imagine being in a situation where you're trying to feed your family and the only way you can get access to a loan is by paying a bribe? How are you going to, you can't buy food for your
Right.
family. How are you going to pay a loan to pay a bribe to get a loan?
Good job. Yeah.
Um, so a friend told him about our bank in Rwanda called Urwego Bank, and he was very happy with the loan terms and how easy it was to get a loan,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no bribe required. And so he took out his first loan for about $35, if I remember correctly,
Wow.
to start his welding business, and uh, faithfully paid that back. Took out another loan, paid that one back, and he took his knowledge of the products that he uses to open up kind of a hardware store
Oh, cool.
where he sells gas and other construction materials, and paid that back over his time. His wife works in the store along with his daughter, and then he got to a point where he was able to start building and selling homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish I could show you a picture. He builds
That's
these
so cool.
beautiful homes in Rwanda, and and he was involved closely with his church and was giving back to his church in all of this as well. And through his church, he was able to find out about people in need in his community. So then he started to build shelters for the people that were living in poverty in his community who needed them, and donate them to them. So, when you think about our context here, about we think that we need to be the ones to travel overseas and build homes for people. What if we
Mm-hmm.
got just invested in people like Faustin, who has those long-term relationships? We were talking about relationships before,
Right.
right? Through his church, he can care for the people that he's serving long-term, where it's not just somebody helicoptering in, building a home and leaving,
Yep.
right? He's able to care for their needs long-term through his
Mm-hmm.
church. He's more aware of what the needs are than we would be. And
Yeah.
all we needed to do was invest in somebody like Faustin, who's talented, who's a gifted tradesman, who is entrepreneurial, who can grow a business, and give him the opportunity to invest in his community. He also employs 15 other people. So,
Wow.
that first $35 loan, which turned into this business over the course of 12 years, wasn't just affecting Faustin's family, but he's providing employment for all these other families. He's providing shelter for families in need. And it just has ripple effects that goes out from there. So I love Faustin's story. Um, I mean, I could tell you tons of stories. I don't know how much time we have, but
Yeah. No, that is so, so cool. And it speaks to what we talked about at the very beginning of like, help us help ourselves. It goes right back to that. Like truly, like you said, it's so different for us to like fly into these countries, build a house and then leave, but also us flying in is us bringing our own team over there
Hmm.
to build the
Hmm.
house. So we're
Right.
not really supporting the local communities at all. Whereas you give them the opportunity, you invest in them and then watch it absolutely flourish and have
Yeah.
such a huge impact on their community. I think that that is so, so cool and an amazing story. And I'm sure that there's so many more that
Yeah.
are
Let me
so
tell you one
similar.
more. Can I
Yeah,
tell you
go
one
for
more?
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Let me tell you about Oleda. So about 70% of the people that we serve around the world are women,
Hmm.
because women are the ones that are often home with they're trying to provide for their children, pay school
Hmm.
fees so that they can get educated, etc. Um, and so Oleda took out a loan of about $100 a little bit over a decade ago to open up a storefront in a somewhat dangerous community in Santo Domingo. And just through multiple cycles of loans and repayments, she grew her store. And so now her current loan is for about $2,500,
Hmm.
and it's so that she can build a home for her family in a safer neighborhood. And
Wow.
here's the cool thing about it. So this new neighborhood where she's building this home, it's a concrete block sided home, which is a little bit safer for her. She's employing people in the community to build the home for her. But this area doesn't have any local convenience stores. They're called colmados in the Dominican Republic. Um,
Hmm.
so this area doesn't have any colmados, and so she's building one under the front of her new home. And her plan is to rent out her current space in the more dangerous area to another entrepreneur
Hmm.
and open up a store in this new community. And the rental is going to provide passive income for her family. And then she's going to
Wow.
be able to provide services in this new community where they don't have them. So just that's just entrepreneurship, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that that they teach in business school.
Hmm.
And she just knows how to do it. Um, she's an incredible woman. She's got such joy on her face. Again, I wish I could show you pictures,
Yeah.
but the joy with which she approaches life and her passion for providing for her family to meeting her community's needs, investing in others so that they can open up businesses as well. It's just truly inspiring.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if you want to send me pictures, I can clip them in
Oh, okay.
into the video. Yeah, so definitely send over some pictures and I will figure out how to do that.
Okay.
I absolutely love that. So with where you guys are at now, you had mentioned to me previously that you guys are now in a spot where you're working a scale. So how roughly when you started, like how many entrepreneurs were you serving? How many are you serving now? And then what are your guys' goals for
Yeah,
that?
those are great questions. So, Homes for Hope is a separate 501(c)(3) from Hope International. So I'll give you the broader picture on the Hope
Sure.
International side first, and then we'll drill down into Homes for Hope. So since our founding in 1997, Homes for Hope International has raised around $270 million over the course of that time. But we've been able to disperse nearly it's $1.68 billion in loans. So this is what I was talking about
Wow.
before about the uniqueness of the way Hope approaches its
Hmm.
work. How $270 million turns into 1.68 billion over the course of
Yeah.
that time. Um, a microcosm of that, Hope International raised $35 million um, uh, uh, in 2022. Um, Hold on, we're in 2024 right now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was around $36 million in 2022, but that turned into $109 million on the microfinance side of our work in 1 year.
Wow.
So that's really the unique part of our work. We've served over 3 million families over the course of our
Oh,
existence as well. And if you think
yeah.
about that, uh, each family is made up, according to the World Bank, the average family size is about 5 people. So
Hmm.
3 million times five. And then you think about all the people like Faustin who employ others in their
And
work.
others,
So
right.
just it continues to
Amazing.
grow. Um, and yeah, so then on the Homes for Hope side, up until about 2006,
Hmm.
all of Hope International's revenue was coming through the building industry. So our founder was calling his friends in the building industry, asking them to do the same thing that he did
Hmm.
um, in building a home, donating the proceeds. And so that's how Hope International functioned up until that point. And then our COO at the time thought that we should probably diversify our income streams a little bit. You know, as you know, in the building industry, it's kind of hard to be able to determine when a home will close. And so as you're running as you're running a nonprofit, you get large chunks of revenue coming in, donation revenue coming in at a time, but you never know when it's going to come, and it's hard to budget and things like that. So him making that decision of diversifying our revenue streams and hiring more traditional fundraisers around the country probably saved Hope International through the 08-09 downturn in the real estate industry. Homes for Hope was donating about $1 million per year to Hope International's programs. And then when I came in 2019, I was learning a new industry, and then the whole world changed, and it was an adventure. But as we were doing our strategic planning in 2020, we set ambitious goals that by the end of 2025, we wanted to grant 15 million to Hope International. So that looked like 1 in 21, 2 in 22, 3 in 23, 4 in 24, 5 in 25. Okay. So it gets harder as each year goes along. The way it looked like for us to enact that plan was to first rewrite our mission, method, and motivation statements, because they were kind of clunky and long and hard to remember. Yeah. And then we also went through a rebranding process because our branding all looked kind of like 90s grunge style. And so we needed a refresh there. And then it looked like starting to hire staff, because again, if it was all just up to me, that wouldn't be good for my marriage. It wouldn't be good for, again, I have skill gaps that I need filled. I can't just be spending all my time on the road away from my family, So we started to hire staff, and we've added about 1 staff per year each year since then. And, set ambitious goals for ourselves, went through a robust strategic planning process that I was privileged to lead. And, we've hit our goals every year. We're about $500,000 ahead of our goals. And, 2024, it's getting harder each year, but we'll see. And so what comes next for us is it's our goal to be responsible for 20% of Hope International's revenue. So last year they brought in 35 million. So that would be about 7 million. So average each year, about 20%. I get to that point. And that allows them to grow and us to grow along with them. We just want to do as much as we can to support the incredible work and mission and programs of Hope International. So that's what it's looked like so far.
That's amazing, and quite the feat. I love how ambitious those goals were, and that you guys are currently surpassing it. Like, that's absolutely incredible. Final couple questions for you. What is the impact that you want to have made when you're gone?
Yeah. I think it's the same for both professionally and personally, but framed differently. I don't want people to make much of me. I want people to make much of God. And so we used to have, in one of our 5-year goals for Homes for Hope, we used to have to become more top of mind in the building industry, because we think that would enable us to, when people think of building industry charities, that Homes for Hope doesn't come immediately to mind. I had somebody that I was interacting with last year who said, I've been in the building, and she went on a Homes for Hope trip with us. And she said, I've been in the building industry for 20 years. I'd never heard of Homes for Hope before, and so that's a problem from an organizational standpoint. However, we've kind of shifted. Getting a lot of interference right now. Oh. Okay, there we go. I think it's better. Are you still there?
Let's try that again. Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to say the thing about, so this woman went on a Homes for Hope trip last year, and one of the things she said to us was she's been in the building industry for 20 years and she's never heard of Homes for Hope before. And so that's an issue that we need to address, but we kind of shifted the focus of, we wanted to be top of mind in the building industry to, we want the building industry to be aware of all God is doing through Homes for Hope, right? Because that's what matters. It's not about us. So the top of mind piece is there, where there's an awareness of Homes for Hope, but the focus of where the praise and the glory is on something that's more lasting than me or my team. And the same goes for me personally. I think I want my kids and my wife, I want the legacy that I leave to be that I loved God and served him passionately with my life. That was my priority. Not building my own kingdom, but living for something greater than that. So I think that's how I would answer your question.
Amazing. And then what summit are you currently chasing?
Yeah, I think there's practical summits and more philosophical summits maybe. But practically speaking, I've laid out some of our goals there. We want to continue to grow and scale the work of Homes for Hope. This year we want to have 13 project starts and be able to grant. Sorry, we want to have 15 project starts and be able to grant $4 million to Homes for Hope. Where we sit right now in April the last day of April in 2024, those two goals seem daunting and out of reach. But there's a lot of time between now and the end of the year. So we'll see if we can get to that summit. Also, when you're growing a nonprofit organization, usually the tipping point is around $5 million in revenue. So there's about 98% of nonprofits exist between 0 and $5 million. So I think once we get to the $5 million in revenue stage, the ball will start to roll down the hill a little bit versus us just clawing upwards, and we'll continue to claw upwards. But that seems to be the tipping point based on my research. But ultimately, like I was saying before, I want people's hope to be in something that's more transcendent than transient, right? Just to tell you a quick story. So again, on this trip that I was on in February, I was there with a bunch of really powerful and influential women in the building industry. And I told them what I told you, if the hope that we're pointing people toward is their businesses or access to loans and financing, then we'd be doing them a disservice, and put us to the test. Ask the people that we're going to meet today where they put their hope. And so we were in this woman's shop in the middle of Santo Domingo, and like a really tiny shop, but she has a really powerful story where she didn't finish high school, but the loan officer, and she was very shy, but the loan officer was kind of talking her up a little bit, getting her used to us being in her shop, and was saying she didn't finish high school, but this woman is smart. She knows what she's doing as a businesswoman, and you could tell because she listens to her customers, and she had these beautiful pieces of artwork in her store and these high-end luxury mirrors that she sources herself because she listens to what her customers want. And then she also has, deodorant. And a guy pulled up on his moped while we were there meeting with her to purchase some deodorant and then drove off. And so we were getting in the way of her doing business, So as she was gaining confidence as we were talking to her, we were asking her questions. And that's what Homes for Hope trips are about, is we don't go there to do things for people. We go there to learn from people. And so one of the questions that the women asked her was, what do you do if another one of the stores around here sells the same product that you do? How do you compete with them? And she held up a mop and she said, if God wants me to sell this mop, I'll sell this mop. If God wants her to sell the mop, she'll sell the mop. And it just showed where her hope was, right? Her hope wasn't in her selling the mop, but in God's provision for her. And then later on in the day, one of the women who was on the trip with us had a home sale that was falling through back in the United States. She works for a builder. And she was kind of stressing about it, but then she paused and she said, if God wants me to sell this house, I will sell this house. If he wants another company to sell this house. So it's just immediate application of what we were learning from the people that we serve. So I think that's the summit that we're chasing, is that we don't want people to look beyond just the services that we provide to something that's more eternal and lasting.
I love that so much. Thank you so much. Where can people find Homes for Hope, and how can they best support you?
yeah, the best thing to do is just to look me up on LinkedIn. Some Matthew Baehr, if you could put that link in the show notes, that'd be great. And then our website is homes4hope.org. And I encourage you to click around on the blog section of our website. There's lots of stories there about some of the stories I told today about the people that we serve around the world and different ways how the building industry partners with us to advance this work. So yeah, I'd encourage people to check us out in those places.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thanks, Audrina.
And that wraps up another episode of Voices of Impact. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found value in our conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more inspiring stories and actionable advice, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, we would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways, so please leave us a comment below. And remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you have the power to climb higher and chase your summit. Until next time, Summit Chasers, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.